coming up.
Recently, Yves Francois, the president of the Montreal Police Officers Union, recently told La Presse that sentences for auto theft are minimal and that everyday police officers in Montreal are catching individuals who are punished with sentences of just a few months. Do you agree with Mr. Francois and that we need stricter sentences for these crimes?
There have been some commentators who have argued that, these auto thefts are essentially a victimless crime, that we're dealing with purely property theft. And some commentators have argued that not only are minimum sentences and stiffer sentences ineffective, but that they would be unjust.
Thank you so much. That was a bizarre straw man.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
In person, Service de Police de la Ville de Montréal, Yannick Desmarais, Commander, Section Head. Sarete, Quebec, Michel Patineau, Chief Inspector. And online by video conference, Intact Insurance, Gimme Lamy. I hope I didn't do too bad on your name. Senior Vice President, Personal Lines, Canadian Operations.
Start off with the two officers, if I could get your opinion on this. We've heard that auto theft has shifted from being a simple issue of property theft to a complex issue of sophisticated, violent, organized crime. Can you describe how these dynamics have changed in recent years and what you're seeing on the ground in Quebec? To both you, sirs?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it has shifted in Quebec recently. We haven't seen the same violence as they do see in Ontario right now, carjacking. But what we do see is that the people who are executing the thefts on the ground are willing to put lives in danger to not get caught. So we're seeing that. And one thing to keep in mind is that these structures are very these organized crime structures that are going from the theft to the exportation and out overseas is a very complex organization, and they all have different roles and responsibilities in the organization. So what we're seeing is the violence is more on the ground, and it's more to evade getting caught.
Anything to answer?
Well, in the Montreal Police Force, we are seeing the same thing. Armed violence is something we see every day. We see firearms, and there was a violent attack just a few weeks, very recently, and we have an investigation underway. There were officers that were fired on. This is a very important issue. And certainly we make the connection with organized crime.
Thank you for that. Hopefully those officers were okay and they weren't hurt in any of that altercation you just mentioned. I'd like to ask my next question to the gentleman from Intact, Mr. Lamy. Is that the way you say it, sir? Lamy? Sorry about that. Mr. Lamy, I recently had a call from a resident of my riding who has a son who's 19 years old, who's been driving for 3 years. They indicated that their son had no tickets, no issues, but their renewal for their insurance came up this year, and it was going to be an additional $70 a month going forward. So when this resident phoned their insurance provider, and I'm not sure who their provider was, they indicated that the increase was strictly, and this was the answer they received, strictly due to auto theft. Are you seeing that type of increases, and is that the way this is affecting people who are already struggling with affordability issues across Canada?
Great question. There's definitely affordability issue, and theft is one cause. I think we see inflation having an effect on insurance price across the whole chain. Be it the vehicles are more expensive to repair, but obviously theft is one of the major driver, and we've seen the cost of theft really triple for insurance companies between 2018 and today. Just to put some numbers into perspective, it was roughly at the industry level, I'm not talking Intact here, 400 million in 2018, and we've gone at 1.2 billion in the last data, the last year that we got on data. So clearly it is a key driver, and that's why I think we need to address that at the root cause. Because at the end of the day, insurance companies are paying for claims, but as you mentioned, this is eventually the customers that pay for it through their insurance premium.
Thank you for that answer. And just to clarify, you mentioned from 2018 to today. Did you say insurance rates across Canada have tripled? Was that your quote, sir?
No, sorry. My quote was the cost of theft was 400 million and now is 1.2 billion. So the cost of theft alone
The cost
tripled.
of theft has tripled.
The insurance premium have not
Okay.
tripled.
I'm glad we got that clarified. Thank you. You mentioned that your company is promoting tags. You did say that you offset some of those costs to customers. Could you just expand to me, tag, from what my knowledge is, just shows the location of it. It's not going to do anything to prevent criminals from stealing a car. They don't know if it has a tag in there. So how is that benefiting your company or the owner of the vehicle?
Well, the thing is, yes, they know that there's a tag in there. So when tag,
How does the criminal know there's a tag in there? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to get to
Okay,
that. So
thank you.
tag, basically aftermarket tracking device. But when it's installed on the vehicle, there's a little etching that's done on the window of the car, and there's what we call the sticker effect, where the thief just see the model that they like, he sees protected by tag, they go to the next door neighbor that doesn't have tag and take that car indeed. And what we're seeing is that only 1% of the cars that we've seen stolen had tag installed, and on those we're able to recover them 99% of the time. So it's very effective. Obviously it doesn't prevent theft, but there's kind of a disincentive.
Thank you. So it'd be like a home alarm system. A lot of people would just put the stickers in their windows whether they have an alarm or not. So I see what you mean by that.
You got it, yeah.
Back to the two officers. Thank you. I'm getting short on time here. And I'm terrible with this, I'm sorry, Mr. Desmarais, I think I was close on that. Recently, Yves Francois, the president of the Montreal Police Officers Union, recently told La Presse that sentences for auto theft are minimal and that everyday police officers in Montreal are catching individuals who are punished with sentences of just a few months. Do you agree with Mr. Francois and that we need stricter sentences for these crimes?
Et c'est sûr que nous, Monsieur le Président, on va toujours être ouvert à des sentences plus importantes, évidemment, comme service de police. Par contre, je peux vous dire, on a fait une opération au mois de février dernier dans laquelle on a arrêté 9 personnes, 55 véhicules volés. Les 2 principaux dans ce dossier-là sont toujours détenus actuellement. Pour nous, c'est des excellentes nouvelles.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the translation was still going. So I didn't catch.
I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just didn't catch the end. It was
Sorry, Mr.
black.
Shipley, yep.
And I'm terrible with this, I'm sorry, Mr. Desmarais, I think I was close on that. Recently, Yves Francois, the president of the Montreal Police Officers Union, recently told La Presse that sentences for auto theft are minimal and that everyday police officers in Montreal are catching individuals who are punished with sentences of just a few months. Do you agree with Mr. Francois and that we need stricter sentences for these crimes?
We certainly want stronger sentences. We always are in favor of that. But we carry out an operation in February, and we arrested nine people, and 55 vehicles were recovered, and they are still in prison.
The translation was still going.
So they are still in custody.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just didn't catch the end. It was
Sorry, Mr.
black.
Shipley, yep.
I just wanted to put into the record 3 paragraphs. In 2005, Mr. Chair, a Department of Justice report found evidence that minimum sentencings are not an effective sentencing tool and don't offer any increased crime prevention benefits. In 2007, the Parliamentary Information and Research Service found that existing research generally does not support the use of mandatory minimum sentences for the purposes of deterrence. And most recently, in 2017, a Statistics Canada report concluded that research in Canada and the United States has found no evidence that mandatory minimum penalties have deterred crime. Rather, some studies suggest that mandatory minimum penalties can result in overly harsh penalties and disparities that actually increase recidivism. And I'm going to be forwarding those 3 reports to our analysts in the hopes that we can reference those during the report that we will be compiling.
Based on the time here, we're going to move to 2.5 minutes. And Mr. Lloyd, you're up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions will be directed to the officers present. There have been some commentators who have argued that, these auto thefts are essentially a victimless crime, that we're dealing with purely property theft. And some commentators have argued that not only are minimum sentences and stiffer sentences ineffective, but that they would be unjust, an opinion that I obviously do not agree with. But we do know that this is not a victimless crime. Organized crime isn't putting the profits, the massive profits they're making off these stolen vehicles, to beneficial uses for society. And I'm hoping you can illustrate to us what your intelligence is telling you about what these profits from these auto thefts are doing in our country. Like, are they contributing to firearms violence? Are they contributing to our drug epidemic? Can you give us some more detail and context about what these stolen vehicles are paying for in our country?
Je peux commencer. Nous, de notre...
Well, we are certainly seeing through our intelligence, we are seeing that firearms are a big issue. We're seeing homicides. We do search and seizures where we find firearms and other goods. So obviously, these activities give them greater access to arms, and there is more violence.
Is that what we're seeing is that organized crime is very good to adjusting to the opportunities that are out there to make a lot of money quickly. We've seen it with fraudulent activity that where organized crime has shifted into that, and now they've shifted into car thefts as well. So, I mean, I think what we're seeing is that organized crimes are adjusting to the market that's available to them. And on our end, we haven't seen too much financing. Our intel right now don't have too much financing into other criminal activities, but we see the same organized crime taking advantage of different markets of criminality.
So in my last 30 seconds, you are seeing a direct link between these organized crime stealing of these vehicles and these profits being put into violent activities such as homicide, such as gun running, such as the drug epidemic. You are seeing that intelligence, a strong connection between these two factors.
Oui, clairement.
Yes, clearly. Even arson.
Yes or no? It's not a victimless crime. Stealing
Non,
auto theft.
non, tout à fait. Il y a des victimes.
No, there are victims. We're not just talking about auto theft. There are other losses.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Biddle, please, for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you so much. That was a bizarre straw man. Monsieur Desmarais, you said maybe it was just something in the translation, but you're concerned about young people being released on bail without those that didn't have a criminal record. Is your recommendation that young people without a criminal record should be incarcerated pre-trial, before pre-trial? Is that something that should happen in all cases, or?
Non, écoutez.
No. I would say that every case is distinct, and there has to be a good assessment of repeat offenses. It shouldn't be automatic to keep every person in custody, but I think if we had a little more power as police forces, it would make things easier.
Thank you. There was some discussion about sentencing being minimal, and we've talked about it in the criminal code. Auto theft, I believe, has a maximum of 10 years, but I understand hearing from multiple police services that we're not seeing those sentences issued even in the most severe type of cases. My question is in respect to other sections of the criminal code with respect to continuing criminal enterprises. Are your police services, and it's to both of you, are your police services charging people under those sections and capturing the organized crime element of it to get those sentences higher due to the severity and the inclusion of organized crime?
Well, there are different types of investigations. There are the shorter terms and there are the longer term ones. When we investigate the longer term ones, when we're trying to dismantle a criminal organization, we're trying to acquire all the evidence to support charges, organized crime charges. In Quebec, our directeur des poursuites criminelles et pénales are in charge of laying the charges. So it's not the police. So what we do is we give them all the evidence of that we've collected, and they decide on what charges are going to be laid. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to our witnesses. Very informative. We appreciate it. Just before the meeting, before we get to the adjournment, I wanted to mention that don't forget the Ukrainian delegation's coming in right after. And also, Mr. Caputo, you wanted to raise something.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll be fairly brief. My understanding, and I recognize I'm new to the committee here, is that Mr. Shifke and Madame Michaud have both suggested that we have further witnesses appear. I'm wondering if there is an appetite for the committee with unanimous consent to extend this study for 2 extra meetings, given I think that we would be prepared to put forward some more witnesses as well. I'm not sure if anybody wants to discuss that at this point.
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that you are still having trouble filling all of the existing meeting spots with witnesses, so I think we can accommodate, we still have 2 more meetings, I believe. Is that correct?
We have 2 more meetings. One meeting is already full, but waiting some invitations. And the last meeting, the 6th one, both ministers are invited.
But there would be a second panel then, so we could have room for Madame Michaud's would be for the Minister of Transport, that would be then accommodated there. Mr. Shifke has suggested one. If the Conservatives would like to suggest one, and the NDP, we could fit it in the second panel. And I don't think 2 extra meetings when we've had panels with only 2 or 3 witnesses, we can accommodate within.
Mr. Shipley, please.
I'll just quickly, because I know we do have other things to get going on too. I think we've learned a lot in this study. I think Mr. Shifke brought up some good points. He missed quite a few manufacturers. I know we had Toyota stay after one meeting. It was incredibly informative. I know it was a cold day, but I went out to the parking lot with them. It was good, so we learned a lot. I don't want to rush through this. I want to do this properly. I know Ms. Michaud mentioned perhaps we could have some staff, not just the minister from that area, also attend. I think 2 meetings is very reasonable. We're not adding a lot there. This has been a very informative study.
Can I make a suggestion? Can you leave it with the clerk and I, and we'll take whoever your requests for witnesses are and see if we can build it into an appropriate schedule. Is that okay? And if it's 2, it's 2. If it's 3, it's 3. Doesn't matter to me. So is that okay, Mr. Caputo? Ms. O'Connell, please.
First of all, just to clarify, we don't just accept any amount of witnesses. It has to be proportional. So I think if there is an opportunity to add 1 or 2, we can submit additional names, but we're not agreeing at this point to necessarily add more meetings, and frankly, conversations about witnesses and meetings would be done in camera. So if we're going to have that further conversation, we can. But we can see what space is available, and then we can determine if there's unanimous consent.
Thank you. Mr. Motz, please.
I think if you look at the witness list that was submitted and the witnesses that have been here, I believe that all parties still have witnesses that are on that list that could come, that we don't have to add anybody new to it. So we do have a lot of, other than the odd 1 or 2, but there's a lot of witnesses there that we can still call that are on the list already.
Okay. Okay.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.